Hello, thank you for listening. My name is Klaus Richter, and I want to tell you a story from a time when I was just 32 years old, though I felt ancient even then. Before the war, my world smelled of ink and paper and cheap coffee. I was a journalist in Leipzig. I believed in the architecture of a good sentence, the solid foundation of a well-researched paragraph. I thought truth was something you could build like a house, brick by brick until it stood firm for all to see. I loved the rhythm of the typewriter keys, the satisfying thud of a finished manuscript on a wooden desk. Words were my tools. They were honest. The party, they taught me otherwise. They showed me that the same tools used to build a house of truth could be used to construct a labyrinth of lies. My fluency in English, my ear for a French accent, my talent for storytelling, they were no longer for the front page. They were for the back alleys of espionage. For RSHA Amt VI. I became a ghostwriter for the Reich, crafting fictions not with a typewriter, but with forged papers, stolen uniforms, and a convincing smile. My life became the story, and the only goal was to make it believable enough to see the next sunrise. By March of 1945, the story was falling apart. The grand narrative of the thousand-year Reich was being torn to shreds by Allied artillery, and I was near Münster, a phantom in the twilight of the gods, on one last, desperate assignment. People imagine spies make grand choices for ideology, for the fate of nations. But for me, it all came down to a single, impossible choice in a muddy ditch, with the smell of rain and cordite in the air. It was about 2 pieces of paper, and deciding which lie I could live with and which truth would kill me. The air itself was a traitor. It carried the scent of wet German soil, the same smell of the fields outside Leipzig after a spring rain, but it mingled it with the foreign stench of American cigarette smoke and high-octane fuel. It was a constant reminder that our world was occupied, not just by armies, but by a reality we could no longer deny. The sky was never quiet, a constant low hum, the sound of bombers heading for cities that were probably already rubble. We called it the Iron Wind. It blew all day and all night. It scoured your nerves raw. My mission was simple in its objective, suicidal in its execution. Operation Varsity had torn a hole in our front along the Rhine. The Americans were pouring through. My commanders, what was left of them, wanted to know where the tip of the spear was aimed. I was to become a ghost, slip through the chaos of retreating soldiers and terrified civilians, and find the plans of an American reconnaissance unit operating near Münster. I was no soldier. My weapon was the English I'd learned from a tutor in my youth, polished to a perfect Midwestern flatness. My armor was a set of worn Polish laborers' clothes, my face smeared with dirt, my shoulders hunched in a convincing pantomime of exhaustion and despair. I was just another piece of human debris washed up by the war. Finding them wasn't hard. You just followed the noise. The confidence. American voices were so loud, so full of food. They didn't have the hollow, brittle sound of ours. I found a forward command post, little more than a collection of tents and a radio jeep parked haphazardly in the lee of a ruined farmhouse. The walls were gone, but a stone chimney stood defiant, a tombstone for a family I'd never know. I lurked in the ruins of a barn across the lane, my heart a cold, hard knot in my chest. Every rustle of straw sounded like a gunshot. I remember thinking of my father's library in Leipzig, the smell of old leather and dust, the quiet, ordered world of books where every story had a beginning, a middle, and an end. Here there was only a chaotic, screaming middle. The past was a dream and the future was a crater. My chance came. A dispatch rider, a boy who couldn't have been more than 19, left his satchel on the hood of the jeep while he went to argue with a sergeant about a fuel requisition. Stupidity, arrogance. They were so sure of their victory, they were getting careless. It was my opening. My movements were fluid, practiced, no sudden gestures, just a slow, shuffling walk, like a man looking for a place to lie down and die. One step, two. The gravel crunched under my worn boots, a sound like grinding teeth. I kept my head down. My hand, slick with nervous sweat, reached out. The leather of the satchel was cool, damp. I slipped it from the jeep's hood, tucked it under my arm, and kept shuffling away, back towards the shadows of the barn. No one looked twice. I was invisible. A ghost, inside the barn with thin shafts of gray light cutting through the splintered walls. I opened it. My fingers trembled, not from cold, but from a nauseating mix of fear and adrenaline. Inside, under a half-eaten chocolate bar and a crumpled letter from a girl named Betty, I found them. 2 folders. The first one was my mission, my grail, a map overlay, clear acetate marked with grease pencil. It showed the exact route of an armored column for the next 48 hours. It even marked their refueling points. They were aiming for a small, undefended bridge. They thought we were broken, a spent force, but the overlay showed their eastern flank. It was completely exposed. There was a remnant of a panzer division hiding in the Teutoburg Forest. If I could get this map to them, we could hit them hard. A bloody nose. Maybe not a victory, but a stay of execution. This map was my proof of worth. It was a ticket for my family, a ration card, a safe passage, a moment of favor in the eyes of men who were hanging men like me from lampposts for defeatism. I folded it carefully, my mind already racing through the routes back to our lines. Then my fingers touched the second folder. It was heavier, thicker. The cover was plain manila, stamped with a single word in English. Internal. I shouldn't have opened it. A good agent completes the mission. He ignores the noise. But I was a writer first. The story always called to me. I opened it. It was not a military report. It was a collection of photographs and a typed, translated summary. The photographs were obscene. They were of a shallow pit dug in a farmer's field. Bodies, not soldiers. Old men, women. A boy who looked to be about 15. Their hands were bound. They were civilians. German civilians. My breath caught in my throat. I began to read the typed pages. An American intelligence officer had stumbled upon the site 2 days earlier. He had found a survivor, a hysterical woman hiding in a cellar. Her testimony was there, translated into cold, bureaucratic English. A Waffen-SS unit falling back from the Rhine had passed through her village. The mayor, a man named Schmidt, had hung a white bedsheet from the church steeple, hoping to spare the town from an artillery barrage. The SS commander saw it. He declared the entire village traitors. He rounded up the mayor, the town council, and anyone who spoke in their defense. He had them shot as a lesson to the rest. My mind, the writer's mind, started to fragment. The sentences became short, sharp, staccato bursts of horror. This was not enemy propaganda. This was an internal American report. Factual, unflinching. The names of the victims were listed. The name of the SS asterisk Obersturmführer asterisk was listed. The location was less than 20 kilometers from where I was hiding. My professional logic was a screaming voice in my head. Burn the report. It's dead weight. It's poison. The map is your life. The map was the fiction that could save me. A story of continued heroic resistance that my superiors wanted to hear. It fit the narrative. The report was the truth. An ugly, unforgivable truth that shattered the grand story of the Reich. We weren't just losing the war. We were devouring ourselves. The disciplined soldiers of the propaganda posters were murdering German grandfathers in a muddy field. I could hear the American soldiers laughing outside. The dispatch writer had discovered his satchel was gone. Shouted the sharp, metallic clatter of a rifle bolt being pulled back. Time was gone. I held a lie in one hand and a truth in the other. One was useful, the other was right. And in the collapsing world of 1945, those two things had become mortal enemies. The cynical spy, the man who had done so many questionable things to survive, wanted to take the map. He needed to. But the journalist from Leipzig, the man who once believed in the power of an honest sentence, he was staring at the name of the 15-year-old boy in the report. Hans. His name was Hans. I made my choice. I took the folder with the photographs. I left the map, the mission, my future lying in the straw. I ran, not like a soldier, not like a spy. I ran like a man carrying a ghost. I never delivered any intelligence. I buried that SS report in a metal box deep in a forest, where it probably remains to this day. A truth too dangerous to tell, too important to destroy. My failure to return from the mission was marked down as another casualty of war. I simply vanished. I became the ghost I had pretended to be, shedding my name, my past, my entire story, and melting into the flood of refugees heading east, away from all the armies. Before the war, I believed a story could be perfected. You find the facts, arrange the words, edit until the truth shines through. That day in that barn, I learned the most important stories are the ones you can't edit. They are raw, jagged, and incomplete. That SS report, it was the last true thing I ever held. I could no longer create fictions for the Reich because I had held the ultimate, unforgivable fact in my hands. The machine was not just broken. It was designed to break its own parts. You cannot fix that. You can only walk away from it. People think of great moral choices in war as a fork in the road, leading to good or evil. That is a luxury. For most of us, the choice was between two different kinds of damnation. Do you serve the lie that protects you and your family, or do you embrace the truth that will destroy you? I chose the truth. It cost me everything, my mission, my safety, my name. But it gave me back one small, broken piece of the man I was when I only wrote with ink. The hardest lesson is this. When the whole world is a lie, the only act of rebellion left is to choose one true thing and carry it, even if it weighs you down for the rest of your life. This memory is a piece of shrapnel I carry. It's heavy. Help me carry it. Subscribe and ensure these stories are never left to rust in silence.